Is Sheffield Britain's fastest growing city? Sheffield is becoming an increasingly popular UK city, particularly among students and young graduates. This is largely due to its low cost of living, proximity to natural scenery, and a gradually expanding job market. While Sheffield is not Britain's fastest growing city in absolute economic terms, its recent demographic and cultural growth makes it one of the most attractive secondary cities for younger populations. Sheffield started as a small town in the early 900s, however grew in the 1600s to being known for cutlery and metalwork due to a large amount of iron ore and fast-flowing rivers in the area which provided power for the machinery. In 1740, however, Benjamin Huntsman invented the crucible steel in Sheffield, becoming the most important part of Sheffield's history and what it's historically known for. In World War II, in 1940, the city was bombed in the Sheffield Blitz due to its importance for the production of steel for weapons. In the 1970s, the city was hit brutally by deindustrialization, leading to mass job loss and emigration away from the city. In the 1990s, however, the city began slowly moving towards education, services and creatives, similar to Manchester or Leeds. This resulted in Sheffield transforming itself slowly from being a large industrial city to simply being a student/creative city, but still with the beautiful old architecture within the city. One reason many people are moving to Sheffield, however, is its low cost of living. Sheffield costs, on average, including rent, 45% less than London. The average rent in Sheffield for a one-bedroom flat is around £850 a week, with London being around £1,500, clearly being more appealing than London. House prices are also similar. In London, the average house price is £655,000, whilst in Sheffield, the price is £250,000, over 50% less than London. This gives many people more hope that they can afford a house someday, which is an issue many people face when they live in London, given the prospects of buying a house become less and less possible for the average family. In London, most people spend around 40% of their salary on rent, while Sheffield people spend around 25%, which is much less. So while salaries may initially appear lower in Sheffield, generally people see more value for their money in the city, in contrast to London. The average salary in Sheffield is around £35,000, whilst in London the average salary is around £41,000. This means that whilst in absolute numbers, salaries in London are higher, people in Sheffield generally have much more spending powers over people in London, making many people see more value for their money in the city. On a side note, the city also has some great, cheap, quality, second-hand shops where clothes will sell for £10. Alternatively, people also move to Sheffield as it's a much more hopeful place to live in than London as a direct consequence of the low cost of living. Many people see a city where they can afford to live and actually have future prospects of buying a house and being able to use their money on what they want rather than to spend all their money on rent, which comes with London, and is becoming more and more popular with young demographics. The only issue is similar to Manchester. Salaries in absolute numbers for highly skilled graduates such as investment banks and financial analysts will never be as high as in Canary Wharf. Another reason people are moving to Sheffield is its beautiful scenery. The city next to the Peak District, which is one of the national parks within the UK. The city is surrounded by relatively tall hills, reaching around 300 metres above sea level. The Peak District itself is somewhere I've visited many times, and is a strange mix of very clean-cut fields and hills, with relatively fresh environment and naturally overgrown forests. The hills Mamtor, Kinderlow and Bleaklow are quite nice, and hikes are nothing too special, but they are decent for a day out, but not really challenging, and the scenery is quite nice. National Park, however, is becoming like a large, overly protected garden for the city, in the sense that everything is becoming more and more regulated, almost removing the nature from the park. You cannot camp overnight in the hills in the Peak District, barbed wire fences are everywhere, fishing is banned, fires banned. It's now just known as London Park, but does give a nice, unique look to the city, as not many British hills are surrounded by hills. Another reason is good transport. Similarly to Manchester, Sheffield has very efficient transportation services, comparable to those in Blackpool. The city has decent bus service, run mainly by Stagecoach Yorkshire. The buses are quite regular and aren't usually as delayed as London buses, running every 20 minutes on average. Prices vary on different services, but tend to be quite cheap. The city also has trams. The trams cost £3, but can be more expensive for return trips, or slightly cheaper for younger people or shorter journeys. Sheffield operates one of the UK's tram train services, the hybrid vehicles that run both tram tracks to Sheffield and rail lines to Rotherham. The main negatives of living in Sheffield are its low salaries. However, another issue is high levels of violent offences, amounting to around 30% of the crimes in the city, making a city with 83 crimes per 1,000 people, above the national average of 72. This makes some of the city, but given it's next to Rotherham and many other cities like Bradford and Leeds, and London itself have higher crime rates, this is a lot less important. Overall, Sheffield is likely to remain a student-heavy city, with many less skilled and graduate jobs being present in the city. However, it is unlikely to grow a large business sector in the same way cities like Manchester, London and Leeds have done recently.